This is a wheel of artists that I have to make a beat for. This is just me. This is me spinning the wheel. And this is what happens. Just got done recording a video, but I didn't press the record button. So here we are. We got Nardo Wick. I'm going to go through my boys DF and Got Mortal. They got crazy loops. Just about every one of them is placement worthy. But today, we just got to find the right one for Nardo. I'm definitely going to go with this loop here. But what I did is I took it and sped it up from 115 to 160 to match Nardo's tempo. This is what it sounds like now. So the first thing I do is go through sound selection first. I like to be able to pick my sounds first so that I can go in and program the drums right after without any delays, having to find the right sound and losing my train of thought when I'm making the beat. So I'm going to start off with just a standard clap as the snare. And then I'm going to take a counter snare. This one is super punchy, a little bit different than most of the counter snares people use like this one. This just hits right away. Next, I'm going to go into choose a hat. I want more of a Southside style hat here.
Lex, you a bitch. You know you a bitch.
Typically, they're a little bit longer drawn out and less punchy. This one's super hard, but I'm going to have to turn it down a little bit. Next, I'm going to grab an open hat. I think I'm just going to go with this standard one. This is the one that most people use in their beats. Just a really clean and smooth one. And then I'm going to go through some 808 choices. So I'm going to listen to the sample again and see what I'm hearing on it. So I have two routes I can go here. I actually already have the samples in mind. I believe this one. So this is a really weird, it's a resonant kind of spins from a Chemix kit. I'm also going to choose a shorter release style one. Really smooth, but it hits hard when it clips. This one. These are weird variations of the spins that just have cool tones to them. So now I'm going to get on with placing the drums in. So for the clap, I'm going to do a standard pattern like you see here. But for the last bar of every four, I'm going to delay it like a drill beat. It'll allow a little bit of bounce and just different variations throughout the beat. I can do some super cool rolls with the snares that fit in with the clap here. So now I'm going to go off of this and put a little snare pattern in for a counter snare. Next, I'm going to throw in the hi-hat pattern. I'm not sure if I want to go with the two-step or if I want to go with a bunch of rolls. Let's see how this sounds. So what I think I'm actually going to do is do a two-step, but throw the rolls in after, and I'm only going to use a few sparingly. So what I did here for that hi-hat pattern is use some pretty simple rolls, but at the end of every 4 bars, I added a little bit of variation. I wanted to keep the repetition throughout, so the pattern is mostly the same, but at the end of the bars, I added a little variation so it doesn't sound exactly the same and it's not too repetitive all the way through. You want to keep that main rhythm in the center though. Next, I'm going to go into the 808 pattern. I think I'm going to start off with the Forsaken Spins 808 first, and then we'll go from there. First thing I do before I put the 808 pattern in is convert the melody to a MIDI track. Plugins like Melodyne actually have this same function, but Ableton has a built-in function that I can just right-click and convert it. A lot of people say this is cheating. I disagree, though, because if it helps my workflow, I'm going to do it. Making a beat is all about getting what's in your head onto the screen, onto the paper. So if it gets me there faster, I'm going to use it. So you can clearly see B's here is going to be the bass note, but then there's also a possibility we can use F sharp and G. So we'll see what we're going to use after I put the 808 notes in. So what I actually ended up doing was using all the notes. I made a really simple pattern first that sounds repetitive but hits really hard. And I'm going to make another pattern that has some 808 rolls or more variation through it so that it's not playing the same pattern throughout the whole beat. So this will be our number 1 pattern. And then I'm going to go and edit number 2. And I possibly may make a 3. So this second pattern here has a little bit more of a melody to it. Most of the time you don't want your 808 to be a melody, but I think it adds more musical taste to it. Since the melody's super plain, this 808 can do this here. Next, I'm going to put the open hat in. Now that we're done the open hat, I'm going to put a little bit of percussion in to fill in those little openings in the beat, just to add a little bit more into it. make it sound cooler. It allows some more variation when I'm doing the arrangements and just, again, doing everything so that the beat doesn't sound repetitive. But then again, we also don't want to overdo it. So that's something you have to be super careful of and look out for when you're making the beat. So I'm going to go with my standard little perk that I always throw in, this little noise here. I basically always put this in the same spot as well. And then I'm going to grab another sound. I want something pretty cool. This is actually pretty cool. So this is basically just a snare roll, but it's a little snare with a delay. So now most of the beat is done. What I'm going to do is add in a little respace just so that I can get a little breakdown. And then we're going to work on the melody a little bit and make it more interesting. So for the melody, I'm going to use a little trick that I learned from Nick Mira. What I'm going to do is duplicate the melody twice and then take these two parts of the melody and pan them to each side so that we can get a really cool stereo field. I'm also going to take them and pitch them up an octave. So this is what this sounds like. Obviously, this is kind of crappy. It definitely adds a little bit, but I'm going to turn it down a lot so you don't hear those crazy frequencies. And then I'm also going to EQ the top end. Now, most people would say that you don't want to take out the high-end sparkle, but here we do it. So I'm going to take out the top end and just make sure I have the fundamental parts of the frequency that really sound good in this. So this really cleans it up. So this is what the melody sounds like now, but we're not stopping there. I'm going to throw on this little effect called camel space. And I'm going to use specifically this filter called At Midnight. What this does is add a lot of ambience to the upper layers and just makes it feel more spacious, and it takes up less sound. You can hear it's a cool, subtle background effect that's on the side, so you can still hear it even though it's really quiet. Now the melody sounds a ton more interesting, and I think it even sounds a little boring still and too repetitive, so I'm going to add in another sound that I can just use to add some variation throughout the arrangement. So now I'm going to play in this little melody that I just came up with. It's using a plugin bank from Contact called Audrey Legato. I'm going to play this little solo. And now that I played that, I'm going to press this little button here, which will bring all the notes in, and I'm going to take them and quantize them and make sure they're on time. I definitely screwed this up playing it a little bit. So now I'm going to throw on some effects to this sound so that I can make it blend with the melody more. There's already a reverb on this from the Contact Bank, so I'm not going to put another one on it. It doesn't need it. What I will do is put on a gigahertz plugin called, I believe it's Low High. This just makes it sound like it's a really old sound. It'll allow it to fit in with the melody more and not sound too out of place and too realistic. So now the mix is mostly done. I'm going to get to some arranging on the beat. So now I'm done arranging the beat. What I'm going to do is put in my tag as well as Mortal's tag and then throw in some effects so that the transitions don't sound too like out of whack. So now I have the little transition effects in here. What I'm going to do is throw on my little mastering chain. It's Ozone Pro Low End Focus. I'm going to put it on the smooth variant here. This is a weird plugin that has super odd algorithms that basically compress the low end and kind of separate it from the top. It makes a really clear difference between the high end and the low end and just makes everything sound super clean.